All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets on this Thursday. Going to be mostly talking about NBA and then some NFL, and then we got a couple of good NHL bets that I'll start the day off with. Good EV bets there. But first, let's get into a recap of yesterday. So yesterday, kind of a sweat-free day for the props that hit. I mean, Chet Holmgren easily got there. Davion Mitchell basically was there at half. Then Nikola Vucevic, the cover boy, kind of the easy one on the day, crushed it. Corey Seager ended up getting there in the last inning. Thank you, Corey Seager, MVP boy. Looking at it though, Ben Simmons got in foul trouble, and he couldn't get anything going then in the second half, really. You know, when we talk about NBA DFS, and especially plays that we have the correct process on, the reasons why a prop won't hit are three reasons. Game blows out unpredictably, like as opposed to what Vegas thought. Player gets in foul trouble, or they're just ice cold shooting. And I will say, maybe with Ben Simmons, we could have saw that a little bit because he was having to play more as a big, getting matched up against Bam. You know, that is something that, sure, looking back on it, retrospect, probably could have maybe saw that as a possibility. But the one that I'm not upset about at all is Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray was just ice cold shooting the basketball in that game. He was 0 for 7 from 3. If you give him even 2 of those, he easily gets the over there. I think he was like 1 for 9 going into the second half. Correct process there. You know, cold night shootings are going to happen in basketball. But I did mention I want to start out with 2 EV bets that we are currently getting. We see Brett Burns in hockey. Okay, guys, over 2.5 shots on goal, projected to get 3.35 with a 55% chance for that one to hit. That one is seemingly going to be a good one. And if we look at it as well on the NHL tab, we're going to see that one is going to be available still on Underdog as well. Now, maybe those odds update throughout the day. We'll see. And then we have another one for Chris as well. Exact same situation where we're getting about a 54% likelihood for this one to hit. Obviously, we like those odds. Projected to get 2.9 as well, so I like that as well. Now let's go ahead and move on into the NBA slate. Well, for what it's worth as well, guys, here, I'll show this. This is via the ODDSJAM screen right now. They have some League of Legends props out there right now that are seemingly good EV bets. So if you guys want to roll with those to attach to the NHL props, if they're still available, go with those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get into their sportsbook screen here, just so we can break down the NBA slate. All right, so we got a small 4-game slate. Going to be much easier to break this slate down. We got the Raptors versus the Sixers. So we know that the Sixers kind of have some new faces there. James Harden is gone. I don't think that's really going to mess with the players that we have currently been betting on. We'll go through that process though. And then the Raptors, Scotty Barnes continues to produce, guys. Now eventually he's going to have a poor game. Like that is, we know that's just going to occur, but he's been a stud for me. It's kind of a lot of the times with props betting or NBA, especially early on in the season, I like to continue to roll with players. John Collins being a perfect example of that, where he continues to be a little bit undervalued. We saw that all like the first half of the season last year with Lauri Markkanen as well. So it seems that we're getting a pretty big edge with Scotty Barnes there. Now, like I mentioned, we look at the 2 starting lineups for these teams. We are going to see that the Sixers, nothing too different. Kelly Oubre starting there, and then Batum is out there. So I guess that's going to be the biggest difference in this game is Oubre starting. Now, the question is, will he get those shot attempts up that he had been getting up? I don't really know. You know, a lot of the times you'll see these guys where they get a higher usage rate in the second unit. So it's tough to say exactly what's going to occur there for Kelly Oubre. He is someone, though, that's very shot dependent. If he's cold shooting the basketball, not going to get there quite clearly. He has been beneficiary again to the free throw line though. But all in all, for the Sixers, we're not going to see any like big differences in terms of the props that we would want to be going in on. And so we are seeing Joel Embiid. We're getting some okay lines for him. Let's just take a peek at him. So Embiid going against Toronto. Let's see the turnovers that he's had: 3, 1, and 7. So that turnover prop that we're seeing there, I don't know if I'd want to like really target that one too much. Rebounds and assists for the under at 16.5. That might be something we might want to roll with. He did get 15 rebounds in his last game and 7 assists. Now that is Portland. We know that Portland is going to be a team that we're targeting this whole season, it appears like. And then in the previous game, he had 17 against Toronto. So obviously we don't like that going against the same matchup. And then against Milwaukee, 7 and 6. So it seemingly is a tight line. If you guys want to roll with the under there, you could. He is projected to get 14.1. That is seemingly the best bet for the Sixers. We are seeing points, rebounds, and assists is an okay one. The issue that I have here is that the lines have finally seemingly corrected for Maxey. Now, I would argue that his points, rebounds, and assist prop is still a little bit too low, guys. Like we saw him last year with James Harden off the court. He was averaging 30 points just there. And then you tack on a few rebounds and assists like we have seen. Like This line to me still feels too low, but maybe we're looking at more of a game stack. I'll get into Scotty Barnes there. I feel like that's the correct move. Then you also have Tobias Harris at a pretty low number as well. 2 out of 3 games he's been able to get there. Against Toronto, he didn't get there. Now, the issue that we're seeing with Tobias Harris is that he is taking a slightly reduced role with Maxey really having a high usage rate, with Joel Embiid playing really well. And so I think if we're going with Harris, it might be looking at like a fantasy score prop, because we see the blocks and steals have been there. Like if he can get 2 blocks and 2 blocks plus steals in this game, that would be huge. So maybe that's something we're looking at. And then Melton as well. He really hasn't had like a really good game just yet. I know he's scored 30 DraftKings points there, but he really hasn't had a highly productive game just yet. So maybe he's somewhere looking at. I do want to point out the assist prop. This is seemingly a little bit too low. Now, you would argue that he's probably due to not have 4 assists in one game, and that's probably why we're getting this line. But 3 straight games he's gotten the over here, and that comes, I think, due to him just not shooting the basketball as much, due to Embiid shooting the basketball more, due to Kelly Oubre shooting the basketball a little bit more. So he has been more of a delegator rather than someone that is forcing up shot. Now we flip over into the other side of this matchup. We got Toronto, and this is some big news. We need to see news on whether these two are going to play. They sat out, I believe, let me just confirm that. I believe they sat out yesterday on the front end of the back-to-back. Yes, okay. The question is whether he'll suit up tonight. And if he doesn't, then we're probably looking at Jakob Poeltl in this game, because then we can predict him to get close to 30 minutes. We have seen that the last 2 games, and Jakob Poeltl is a point per minute stud. So this is kind of one of those situations like yesterday where we were getting some discounted lines for the Detroit bigs if Jalen Duren was out. And so looking at it right now for Jakob Poeltl, I think this is worth the risk, guys, because he can get there regardless. Like if he gets 25 minutes like he would anyways, this line seems to be a little bit too low. If he does get more minutes with Precious out or Christian Koloko out, then this is seemingly a free square. So it does seem like we have some pretty good stacking opportunities in this game. And I do want to touch on Scotty Barnes. Like this also feels like Maxey as well, where the line just hasn't been corrected just yet. I don't really know why. I know the game total isn't that high, but Scotty Barnes is playing extremely well. And you look at the minutes last game against Milwaukee, he didn't even need to get those minutes because they blew them out. And he still had 12 rebounds, 5 assists, a bunch of blocks, 21 points. And he's consistently getting up over 15 shot attempts. Like that is huge. Okay, he's not even really getting to the free throw line, and he's dominating. And so we look at this game against Philly, like that was a decently high scoring game, and I think we can almost bank on that again. So it does feel like we have some pretty good stacking opportunities, and I'll just show you guys kind of what I'm looking at there bet wise for that game. But first, let's just take a peek at what the data is telling us. The data is telling us OG for under 3.5 rebounds is seemingly a good one. Pascal Siakam for under 4.5 assists is seemingly a good one. At the same time, this is weird. This is very weird. Okay, we see why. Because this is being valued at 11 if you combine these, and so at 10.5, yeah, we are seemingly getting a slight edge there. So it's really, what kind of game do you think Pascal Siakam is going to have? Because we are seemingly getting an edge there. That's fascinating. Scotty Barnes over 4.5 assists. So let's just take a peek at some of those. And then I do want to talk about Dennis Schroeder. He's been someone that's been playing well as well. Game stack wise, I think we could be on him. So let's take a peek at those just real quick. So OG thus far this season had 1 game with 6 rebounds, and then the rest of them have been 3 rebounds. So, seemingly a decent line there. I don't know if we need to force that though. We look at Pascal Siakam. Do we want to do rebounds and assists, or do we want to do the unders there? It's seemingly a tight line. Like, let's just face it, right? Like, very tight line, probably the correct line. To me, it doesn't seem worthwhile there. We look at the last game against Philly, 7-4. Tough to say what would happen, tonight. I don't know. We're probably just staying away from that. And then for what it's worth, I do want to mention Dennis as well. He's been someone that's been playing really well for the Raptors. A little bit of a shock to me, but good for him. He's getting shot attempts up, over 10 shot attempts in every game thus far. We look at against Philly, 5 for 14, not the best night shooting, but he still went off. Like, the assists were there. And I'm actually curious. Let's take a peek if we're getting any assist props for him. We are not. Okay, that probably makes sense. And for what it's worth, the Scotty Barnes assist prop, I don't know if we want to roll with that. I think we'd rather do points, rebounds, and assists. So here's what I would kind of be looking at for a stack. They're really just continuing to ride with these two. If they let me down, kind of, oh well. To me, the lines seemingly haven't been corrected enough. Jakob Poeltl, basically just a bet on Precious and Koloko being out. That happens. This should be kind of a free square, I would imagine. And even if they play, still could be a good one. We don't like the matchup against Joel Embiid, though, a little bit. He could get in foul trouble and whatnot. And then Dennis, this is where it gets difficult. Like, you could go with potentially OG for over his points, rebounds, and assists, Pascal Siakam if you wanted to, or just not even include that. Tobias Harris over points, rebounds, and assists. I would just say more times than not, this is going to be too low of a line. If we're kind of game stacking, I would imagine kind of game script wise, we think this game's going to be a little bit higher scoring. So thus someone like Tobias Harris would get there. And then I don't know if I want to do points, rebounds, and assists necessarily for Melton, because we could just do assists. Like if we're banking on Maxey having a good game and Harris having a good game, then Melton over assist could be there. I do think maybe with Kelly Oubre playing in the starting unit, that maybe he gets a couple more assist opportunities with Oubre chucking up shots as well. So there is that as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. So the next game, we got the Pistons versus the Pelicans. Okay, so one of the sharper calls yesterday was saying like with Jalen Duren out, we might get some edges. And so we got to see the news there if Duren's going to be active or not. Probably expect him to be active. But then we also have the Pelicans where we had Brandon Ingram inactive yesterday as well on the front end of back-to-back. Got to get news on those two. Now we look at the projected starting lineup. We do know some players are going to be out for Detroit. Okay, Duren is in the projected starting lineup for now. And then we look at the Pelicans. We are seeing Brandon Ingram is currently in the projected starting lineup. Obviously, that could really shift the whole dynamic of the slate. One player that really benefited with Duren being out was Thompson in terms of usage. Cade Cunningham had himself a really good game. Isaiah Stewart kind of just stayed the same because Bagley was able to take up some usage as well. Looking at the Pelicans, if Ingram's out, you're just kind of loading up on CJ McCollum. And so let's just get into those props for each team. And so with that kind of potential injury news for Brandon Ingram, the only props that we are getting are going to be for Zion and also CJ McCollum. And I think the reason why we're getting those is because, one, they probably think Ingram's going to play, because I would argue that the line is simply way too low for CJ McCollum if Ingram sits. Now, you could also argue that it might be too low if Ingram plays. Like, to me, this line that we're getting on McCollum is solely a line based off of Ingram being active. Now, we would rather chase his fantasy score prop, especially against Detroit, where we could probably see him get about a block as well, where we're seeing McCollum have a few more assists. To me, that'd be the way that we would want to go, just because he's not getting too many turnovers. And so, let's just do the math here. A turnover is minus 1 point, a block or a steal is 3 points. So that's a 2-point added bonus right there. Same thing here, 3 points. He had 4 steals there. So big bumps in his production fantasy score wise. So if we get that prop at, let's say, 33.5, 34.5, we'd be fine taking that over. Heck, even at 35.5, maybe even at 36. Like, that is a seemingly low line, especially if Ingram's out. So it's the back end of a back-to-back. Typically speaking, we expect those players to play, but maybe something there. Zion finally had a good game last game. He had been struggling up until that point. It is early in the season, especially with a player like Zion. There probably is going to be a little bit of inconsistency. Now, the Detroit Pistons are running out 3 bigs between Stewart, Duren, and Bagley. And so could he struggle in this game? Potentially. The shot attempts are definitely there, though. And he's not even taking that many threes. So you would expect him to soon have better games. And if he's getting that many shot attempts, he should be able to get over 24.5 points. But it's just kind of a stay away, wait and see approach there for Zion. And if we look at the data for CJ McCollum, we are going to see that it does kind of light the over here. We can see the average sportsbook line is actually giving it more of a 30 for the line. Well, no, I guess PrizePicks has bumped this. So 30.5 is probably correct. Let's just put it that way. But you can still make that bet on underdog. So that would seemingly be the approach. We got to add 30.5 on PrizePicks. Probably don't want to roll with that. Whereas an underdog, they haven't bumped it yet. So if that's still there, by all means, that's probably a good bet there. Now I'll take a peek at the props that we are getting for Isaiah Stewart. We are seemingly probably getting some good lines if Duren sits, but once again, he is currently expected to play. Now we see the best prop that we are currently seeing on the screen was Thompson for over rebounds and assists. So let's take a peek as to why. 9 in that game. So we see the line there at 11.5. Not exactly what we would want, but that was his worst game in terms of that thus far. But to me, it's why not just do rebounds then if we're going to be doing that? And let's see what his rebounds prop is at. 8.5. So it's kind of funny because now we're seeing that as the under. So all in all, EV wise, we're probably not wanting to bet on that. And I would honestly say probably just a better bet on one of the sports books, where if you want to bet the over for 8.5 rebounds, that'd be the way to go. Isaiah Stewart's points is kind of one that's interesting there, especially when compared to his assists. Now the issue with Stewart is he's been way too consistent, but he is consistently getting over 11.5 points, and he is getting a lot of assists as well. So that's kind of where that line was definitely interesting to me. Maybe they think this matchup is going to be a little bit more difficult, which it certainly could. The biggest issue that I saw the last 2 games is that with Duren out, he's actually seen fewer shot attempts, and that's not something that you would expect. Now, last game he did get into a little bit of foul trouble. Maybe he was playing a little bit more conservatively, and his minutes have been down the last 2 games as well. They kind of got blown out by OKC. So if he gets closer to 36 minutes, I would think that he'd be able to get this over. And then also, if Jalen Duren is out, to me, that would only help his likelihood of getting over 11.5 points. So to me, that is seemingly a pretty good prop that we are getting there. Cade Cunningham at 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists. We'll take a peek at that. You know, he is someone that did get a bunch of shot attempts up in that last game. Seemingly a good matchup against Portland. You know, I mentioned we're going to be attacking Portland a bunch this season. I don't know if we want to be going in on Cade Cunningham here. You would think, you know, getting that many shot attempts up, you know, almost 20 in 3 out of the 5 games, like that's obviously great. In the 2 games where he didn't get that many, he was just having a poor night shooting. So it really just depends on how he's shooting the basketball. I don't know if I want to touch that. And so let's just go ahead and move on to the next game there. So in the next game, we got the Magic versus the Jazz. And so it is a 1-point spread on average. Now, some lines have it at 1.5, some have it at -1. Just an interesting line that we're getting there. And then 221 for the over and under. So seemingly this is going to be the best game because it's projected to stay close. And it's the third or second highest scoring game on the slate. Looking at both teams injury-wise, we're going to see that really nothing to worry about injury-wise. We are going to see that the Magic are just an extremely annoying team in terms of minute. Now, I do want to start with the prop that we had last game. I don't know if we're actually getting it just yet. Banchero at 3.5 assists has been one that was there. He's been able to get over that every game thus far. We're not getting that just yet, but maybe that's one we're looking at again. Let's just pull up the Magic. So Wendell Carter, let's take a peek at this. So steals or points and assists, let's take a peek at those. So kind of the one player that has been seemingly locked into more minutes has been Wendell Carter. I don't know if we want to do the steals there. To me, that's a little bit thin. And then points and assists at 12.5. Also, that also feels a little bit too thin. And I know that on paper, like Utah's that difficult of a match, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to touch that. Now we have seen Banchero be getting more minutes as well. You know, he's someone that also is getting about 30 minutes per game, a little bit over that. We know his role is kind of locked in. He should be getting 10 shot attempts. He hasn't really had a good game thus far. And then Wagner has kind of been their best player thus far this season. So I'm actually curious as to what those two players' lines are. So for Wagner, the best one we have for him is 4.5 rebounds. I don't know if we want to touch that one. He has been able to get over that in 3 out of 4 games thus far. So, you know, probably a little bit too tight, but, you know, higher scoring-ish game, close game, you know, maybe the ball bounces his way one more time to get that 4.5 rebounds. Okay. Let's take a peek at Markelle Fultz as well. I don't know, guys. To me, with the Magic, the minutes are just too spread out, especially at the guard position. I don't know if I want to touch that. Now, Fultz has been getting 30 minutes the last 2 games. Great. I don't know if we can trust that though. So the line for his rebounds and assists is at 8.5. And yeah, that feels thin as well. I know the matchup's going to be better and maybe that's just more of a game stack prop that you can roll with. But with me, I don't want to touch it. Like Cole Anthony did see his minutes go down a little bit last game. Not exactly sure why. Saw Jalen Suggs actually get 30 minutes in that game. So seemingly that's why. Gary Harris is going to get around 20 minutes. So to me, I don't know. The Magic until some injury news starts to occur with them. To me, it's just to stay off. Now, Utah, let's just start out with my boy, John Collins. So eventually, John Collins is not going to be a good fantasy producer. And I say fantasy producer because typically speaking, guys, those are the props that we want to be looking at. And he was able to get the over fantasy points yesterday. The line was seemingly too low for him yesterday. I think it was at 25.5 or maybe 27.5. Anyways, he got the over. And he's been able to get the over every single game thus far. So I'm very interested in where that line comes out to be. And I want to point out that game, the last game against Memphis, was a game in which they dominated. Utah dominated. So that's kind of a nice part about Utah playing on the back end of the back-to-back is they seemingly saved about 7 minutes of game time there. You know, I don't typically worry about minutes too much on the back end of back-to-back, but that is nice to see that they didn't get their full allotment of minutes. And so seemingly, if this game stays close like Vegas thinks, John Collins still going to be a great option there. And it's one of those weird things where I think it's just too early in the season. The projection data hasn't really caught up to John Collins having a bigger role than they might have thought. We saw that yesterday in DFS was TJ McConnell. I kind of mentioned that in the props video, but TJ McConnell was only 12% owned. And basically when Halliburton's out, you just want to load up on TJ McConnell. Is very, very strange that the data that people, reference to make all those projections and whatnot didn't catch up to that. And that was one where if you guys were on the Occupy Fantasy live stream, which I do, a few times a week, we were just hammering that home and it ended up working out. And I was very mad that we didn't get any props on him. I just kept refreshing. Also mad about the whole server going down yesterday for PrizePicks. That was annoying. But this is seemingly going to be a good prop for John Collins as long as the game stays close, which I think it will. Now, could he have a cold night shooting? Sure, but I'm just going to continue to ride the hot hand here. And let's just see what the data says. The data might not agree, and so it doesn't. This is seemingly a better bet on the sports books. And once again, for those that don't get what I mean by that, is with PrizePicks, the strategy in the long term is to be finding bets that have a 54% chance of hitting, whether that be for the over or under. That's going to give you a long-term calculated profit over PrizePicks and Underdog. Lower than that likelihood, you should be betting on the sports books because those are just better individual bets. The payout will be better then. And that's really what we're gaming against, is the payout structure of PrizePicks. Now, to me, that line is still too low. I'm probably still going to be using that, especially if I am doing 4-slip, 5-slip, 6-slip bet, because I still think he's going to be productive producer. Let's see some other ones. We got Horton Tucker. Let's just take a peek at Horton Tucker in general. I'm actually curious as to what his minutes are projected to get. So let's scroll down here. And so we'll see he's projected to get around 30 minutes in this game. About 0.7 steals. And looking at it, yeah, I don't know if I really want to be targeting that one too much. I don't know, steals and blocks, especially for a guard, it's a little bit more difficult to predict, and especially when his minutes are so sporadic. I don't really want to be touching that for Horton Tucker. Moving on, the other props that we got are kind of Jordan Clarkson popping up for over points, rebounds, and assists at 23.5. This is one that will probably get bumped. We'll see. We'll go through the process of it though. So the reason why someone like Horton Tucker isn't playing as much is because you're getting minutes, a little bit more minutes to Jordan Clarkson. Now, his production really depends on how he's shooting the basketball. We can clearly see that 2 for 10, 3 for 10, 4 for 13, not getting there. And then you look at good night shooting, he's getting there. Now, Orlando's not a matchup I'm too worried about, so you'd imagine he'd be able to get there. We have seen Keontae George getting a little bit more minutes. He was someone that had a good summer league. Colin Sexton had himself a really good game last night, but he also was in during garbage time a little bit. I don't think we're worried about him getting too many minutes. And so to me, really, on this team, we're looking at Lauri Markkanen just having a huge usage rate, and then also John Collins, maybe not huge usage rate, but production. And so for me, I think we could maybe game stack this game. Lauri Markkanen for over 34.5 rebounds and assists, but maybe we're just looking at him for fantasy score. Again, if that comes out, maybe it's like at 40, 39. I feel comfortable with that. But that game blew out against Memphis, guys. So chances are if that game stays close, you give him, again, 7 extra minutes, I think he gets there. So to me, I think John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, pretty good game stack. And then Wagner, do we continue to roll with him? Like, is he going to continue to have a hot hand? Potentially. That line's a little bit thin. That's the issue here, is that I don't like the Orlando Magic because their minutes are spread out. Let's go ahead and move on into the next game. So the final game of the slate is going to be the Spurs versus the Suns. As you guys probably know, I've been saying that the Spurs are going to be a team that I think, along with Portland, those are going to be two teams that we want to attack just in terms of increasing the production for opposing teams. The Suns are 9-point favorites almost, and so we do have a little bit of a blowout risk. And so what does that mean for minutes? We'll go through the process and see. But it is a 226 over and under, so the highest scoring game on the slate. We look at the starting lineups for these teams. Devin Booker currently a game time decision. We kind of know what to expect when he is out now. Bradley Beal is out though. So if Devin Booker sits, Grayson Allen is going to be starting. I would wonder if he is going to be a good fantasy score prop again like he was in the previous night. We will see about that. Eric Gordon starting at point guard, kind of just hit or miss in terms of his shooting, if he's shooting the basketball well or not. Kevin Durant was one of the better under fantasy score props in the previous game, and we'll see if that's something we're looking at. So let's start out with Phoenix. So for Phoenix, we are seeing like Kevin Durant is one of the props that we are getting here. 41.5 for points, rebounds, and assists. And part of the reason as to why he's been getting the under, one is because he hasn't needed to really go out and dominate, but also he has been struggling, relatively speaking. Like 5 turnovers there, not getting as many rebounds. You would need him to get more points. And I don't know, like, was the defense of Victor giving him some difficulties? I don't think so. The issue is that based off the samples that we have seen thus far, like his per 36 production doesn't really say that he's going to have a better game with Beal and with Booker off the court. Now, if Booker is expected to play, that might actually help KD. He gets a few more open shots. Yusuf Nurkic, he did get over 25.5 points, rebounds in this last game against the Spurs. The thing with Yusuf is we need the minutes to be there for him, and he was getting into foul trouble as well the first 2 games. We know that that's going to be something that typically doesn't occur. So if he can get us a couple extra minutes, closer to 30 minutes, then you would imagine he'd be able to get the over for whatever his overs are. And we look at it like, I don't know, I'd almost rather go points, rebounds, and assists, or maybe just rebounds where, if the minutes are there, he might be able to get the over. But to me, that does feel a little bit too thin as well. Probably just looking at fantasy score, if it's set at, I don't know, like 28.5, 29 even, I'd probably be able to bet the over there. Anything other than that, probably just staying away from. And that's kind of it for the Suns right now, because we are worried about whether or not Devin Booker is going to play or not. And to me, the production has been a little bit too spread out with those players. And the reason why Grayson Allen was kind of a good prop in the last game was simply because he hadn't had like an elite game just yet. And we had seen some of the other players do that. And, he could be someone we're looking at again. He was extremely efficient shooting the basketball though. And that's kind of, I think, why that was a good spot data wise, because you just expect a player like him to have a good night shooting. Eric Gordon was pretty productive and has been pretty productive. The issue with him is, will he have a cold night shooting? Maybe not against the Spurs, but don't love that too much. Jordan Goodwin is someone that did have a bad game last game. And then Josh Okogie here, his minutes are pretty much locked in. He had a terrible night shooting, 3 for 10, 1 for 4. I'm not sure where his prop line will come out to be, but if it's at like 9.5, even 10, maybe you could be looking at the over, just assuming he's going to have a better night shooting against the Spurs. But it's tough to say where that line will come out. Let's go ahead and switch up and get into the Spurs. So the Spurs are a team in which I kind of like their roster. You guys know I like Zach Collins by now. We're seeing his line at 3.5 assists as maybe a good prop that we're getting. And actually, let's take a peek at his minutes real quick, because that could determine whether or not we should be going in on him. 32 projected minutes. And so if he does get 32 minutes, to me, that would definitely be an intriguing play. He is someone last year where really with the Spurs, we could not accurately project minutes. And we see right now 27 minutes. So will he actually get 32 minutes? It's tough to say for sure. That does feel a little bit too thin, but he is a good point per minute producer. And again, like this might be something we want to do in terms of fantasy score. Now, he had 5 and 4 turnovers against the Clippers and Houston, only 2 last game. And so as long as he can keep that under 3, I'm fine with it, because the chances of him getting a block or a steal are pretty much there. Like he should be able to do that. And I do like the assist prop for what it's worth. And even this points, rebounds, and assist prop does seem to be a little bit too low. But again, I think we'd rather look at fantasy score. But all in all, right now, the 3.5 assists is seemingly a good prop. Devin Vassell here. Let's take a peek at his prop line. So it's points and assists. Now, he has been someone that has been shooting the basketball a bunch. I mean, 17, 10, that's not a lot. That game was a blowout. 13, that game went to OT. So kind of a lower shooting night for him. And then 17 again. And so that line at 20.5 is kind of low, I would say. Now, he's not getting a bunch of assists, don't get me wrong there, but at the same time, I think like Keldon Johnson is probably going to start being more productive as well, and that should lead to a couple more assists his way. I don't know if you guys want to do like over points for him. I don't mind that one if he's going to be shooting, around 15 plus shot attempts. Really not that much to get there. I don't hate that. That feels like more of a game stack option though. Yeah, the points and assists I could get behind there. I do want to take a peek at Keldon Johnson. Now, we're not getting any good EV bets for him, but he is someone that, coming into the season, I thought he would have a much better season than he's had thus far. And it's not even been bad. Like I do really like the points, rebounds, and assist prop, because to me, he's their current number one. Obviously, we all think Victor is going to be that, and I do too. I don't think that's really a hot take. Keldon Johnson against the Clippers. I think we just tossed that game away. Now, does this game have a chance of blowing out? It does, but more times than not, I think Keldon Johnson's going to be able to get this over. So thus, I think we want to be going in on this. And we have seen 3 out of 4 games he's been able to do that. To me, that's just a strange number for a guy that was a highly consistent producer last season. He was like the only player we could bank on last year to get some minutes. Jeremy Sohan was someone I was banking on early on in the season, literally the first 2 games. And I still don't mind him. It's just, I think his minutes are capped, because we're seeing Jones get some minutes. We're seeing Vassell get some minutes at the point guard spot. And we're seeing Chetty get some minutes there as well. And so to me, Sohan is someone that I don't know if we want to be going in on too much. And Webby, I don't know as well. Like, it's tough to say what we do with him. Maybe fantasy points as well, depending on the line. But that's tough to say. So let's go ahead and give you guys a bet of the day for the day. Oh, well, here real quickly, we'll show you guys Underdog. So the best props that we have on Underdog, and once again, we are not getting that many good EV bets, as you guys can see. So it's tough to really say anything different than what I had already said. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day. So I did realize I didn't get into any NFL, so let's go ahead and get into that real quick. And then also college football, I kind of jumped the gun there. So looking at right now, we are seeing a tackle and assist prop right here. We're seeing the under being favored. The average sportsbook line is basically a push right here for Patrick Peterson. I don't know if we want to be touching that, but let's just kind of go ahead and look at tonight's slate. And for tonight's slate, we're going to see Okonkwo. We're seeing at 2.5 receptions as being a pretty good prop at 54.4% likelihood to hit. Another tackle and assist prop where, basically being favored as a push there, more like that. And I'm actually curious as to where Deontay Johnson's receptions prop is at. We do his receiving yards is pretty low. And yeah, I do think his receptions prop at 5 is too low. He is someone that, given the Tennessee Titans defense, I think they're going to try to get the ball to him early and often. They're going to kind of use short passes as a little bit of that kind of run game to supplement the run game pretty much. And so those are kind of the two best, Okonkwo and also Deontay Johnson. We'll take a peek at Underdog. Will Levis over 9.5 rushing yards. You guys kind of know by now I don't really like those too much. Najee Harris for under his receiving yards. Again, like, I don't know, those 1 yard differences at such a small line, I don't really like to touch too much. Look at some other props that we're getting on Underdog. We are seeing the receptions prop for Deontay Johnson be a good one. So yeah, we have some seemingly good props. All right, so just showing you guys my favorite bet on underdog is going to be McCollum and Deontay Johnson. McCollum, we already saw this was bumped to 30.5. If Ingram is out, that is seemingly going to be really the best bet that we could have. That's basically like in a taco. If McCollum's in, it still is seemingly a pretty good bet. The over is being favored there. And then I do like Deontay Johnson for over 5 receptions. I think this line's going to get bumped, throughout the day. So, get on that. So I did already show you guys the 2 NHL props that you can roll with. It. Those are still there by the time this video is posted and you guys see those. I think that those are great EV bets. You could definitely pair those up with any of these bets. To me, I do like, and they're probably a little bit too thin right now. I probably want to go fantasy score props. It does feel like we're forcing these a little bit too much, but these are all 4 props where I just think the lines are simply too low. And I want to caution against this. Like, those are much better individual props on the sports books because they're not really good EV bets. Okay, they're just not. And so that's where when you're playing on PrizePicks, you want to be chasing those EV bets that have 54% chance to hit. And really the only one on the slip is this one, Okonkwo. Like, you'd be better off putting those NHL props with Okonkwo there because that's what the day tells us to do. I do think Deontay Johnson is going to be one that does get bumped throughout the day though. So that's seemingly a good one. If we were going to extend the NBA slip out, I think I would do Lauri Markkanen for over points, rebounds, and assists. As it sits right now, obviously we don't have the fantasy score prop. So that'd be another one you could toss in there as well. But that's going to be all for this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell, and then hit the thumbs up as well. The notification bell just so you can get those good EV bets at the start of the video. Guys, that's going to be all for this video. If you guys want access to that PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, it is available at the 9to5sports.com website for just $10 a month. That is going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.